Good afternoon, attendees. We will get started with the WSSA NIFA webinar in just a few seconds. We're allowing people to enter the webinar, and we will have Dr. Kells start us off here in just a few. Dr. Kells, that takes us to about 2 minutes after. Why don't you go ahead and get started whenever you're ready.
Thanks, Eric. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the second of two webinars on NIFA Grant Programs, sponsored by the Weed Science Society of America. WSSA is a nonprofit professional society. Our society promotes research, education, and extension outreach related to weeds, provides science-based information to public and policymakers, and fosters awareness of weeds and their impacts on managed and natural ecosystems. We have 4 presenters today who will each speak for 10 minutes, followed by 15 minutes of questions and answers. Please use the Q&A widget at the bottom of your screen to submit questions to the panel. You'll notice that the webinar is being recorded. We'll be posting the recording on the WSSA website, and it will be publicly available. So I do encourage you to submit questions as you think of them. And then at the end of the webinar, we will spend time on questions and answers. So our first presenter today is Dr. Erica Kistner-Thomas, who is a national program leader at NIFA in the Division of Plant Systems in the Protection Division. So Erica, you are up.
All right. All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to be discussing AFRI's pest and beneficial species in agricultural production systems. This is a part of our Foundational and Applied Science program. The program code is A1112. And before we get started, I am legally obligated to tell you that the USDA is an equal opportunity provider, employer, and lender. This is our non-discrimination statement. In accordance with federal civil rights law and the USDA's civil rights regulations and policies, USDA, its agencies, offices, and employees, as well as institutions participating in or administering USDA programs, are prohibited from discriminating based on race, color, national origin, religion, sex, gender, including gender expression, sexual orientation, disability, age, marital status, family or parental status, income derived from a public assistance program, political beliefs, or appraisal, retaliation from prior civil rights activities in any program or activity conducted or funded by USDA. Not all bases apply to all programs. Remedies and compliance filing deadlines vary by program or incident. Persons with disabilities who require alternative means of communications for program information, for example, Braille, large print audio tape, or American Sign Language, should contact the responsible agency or USDA Target Center, or contact USDA through the Federal Relay Service. The numbers provided. Additionally, program information may be available in language other than English. To file a program discrimination complaint, you will need to complete the USDA Program Discrimination Complaint Form AD 3027 found online. How to file a program discrimination complaint at any USDA office, or write a letter addressed to USDA and provide in the letter all the information requested in the form. To request a copy of the compliant form, you can call the following number listed there and submit your completed form or letter to USDA by mail. The address is listed there as well. And we also have our email at program.intakeusda.gov. And with that out of the way, We'll go ahead and get started talking about my program. So I'm a part of the USDA's Pest and Beneficials team. I'm a national program leader at NIFA. I'm in the division of plant protection in the Institute of Food Production and Sustainability. And I've been with NIFA for about 22 months, and I'm an entomologist by training. Co-leading the Pest and Beneficials program with me is Dr. Chris Phillips. He was just hired here with NIFA. He's been on the job for approximately 2 months. He will be helping me with this program because we get over 100 applications per year. And we also have Logan Appenfeller as our program specialist, and he's been with me for about 2 years now. So he's pretty fast and seasoned at getting the job done. So this program is a really good program for weed biologists. We usually fund at least 1 to 2 grants per year for this program involving weed science. So this is, again, AFRI is part of the AFRI Foundational Applied Science Program, and it's called Pest and Beneficial Species in Agricultural Production Systems. That program code, which you'll look up at the AFRI RFA, is A11112. The proposed budget request, the max award for our standard research grant is $750,000 per projects. And those standard research grants are 2 to 5 years in duration. The project types for these is research only and integrated. So you can also do a 50% research and extension project as well. We have many different types of grants under this program, which I'll go over in a little bit. We have standard research grants. We also fund conference grants, and we have a variety of strengthening types of grants, including new investigators, seed, equipment, and sabbaticals. But the seed, equipment, and sabbatical grants are only eligible for strengthening institutions, which include your 1890s, your all minority serving institutions, EPSCoR states, the 2022 EPSCoR states, as well as small to mid-sized universities. The application deadline for this program is August 25th, 2022 at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at grants.gov. And you can email me if you have any questions, and you can also contact Chris or Logan as well if I'm not available. The goal of this program is to advance the knowledge of invasive as well as established plant pests, as well as associated beneficial species. And really, this is for the development of innovative bio-based strategies to manage these types of pests. And what do we mean by pests? We mean all types of pests. We mean weeds, agronomic weeds, we need insects, we need plant pathogens, slugs, and nematodes. And these can be in many different agro ecosystems, including agroforestry systems, standard row crop systems, vegetables, greenhouses, all types of those, basically any type of agro ecosystem that you can think of. This program began as in about 2017. We used to have a separate program where we would just fund weed science that had to do with in genetics, but that program was not continued for funding just because we didn't get enough applicants. So we then created this program where we do basically bio-based or biological control pest management involving all these different types of systems. To date, we've funded 109 projects, including 16 weed science projects. And I hope to keep increasing that number every year and get more representation from the weed science. Total funding for this program has been at $44 million. And over the last 2 years, we've had over 100 applications. So it is a very competitive program, and we've managed to increase the budget each year. So in 2020, we had $6.8 million and 16 projects funded. And then last year we had 17 projects funded at $7.5 million. So this is a very broad program in terms of what types of applications we accept. So there's a lot of different things you could address here as a weed scientist. So you could look at biotic factors and abiotic factors affecting the abundance or spread of agriculturally important plant pests, disease vectors, or beneficial species relevant to pest management, and that of course includes weeds. Behavioral attributes of pests and beneficial species, that's more for insects. Factors that contribute to invasiveness, or including but not limited to studies using population genetics, genomic approaches, or models to predict or prevent outbreaks or pinpoint geographic location or origin. Movement and dispersal of pests or beneficial organisms, and that movement also includes movement of weeds in terms of also seeds, movement of seeds through moving agricultural equipment. Mechanisms of plant resistance to pesticides or toxins in genetically modified plants, and development of strategies to mitigate or resistance and or crop failure, And new for this year, we added the use of indigenous traditional ecological knowledge in pest or disease control, and also conference grants. We fund a variety of conference grants, but we also specifically look for weed conference grants. One thing that is unique about this program and AFRI in general is that we have a special type of grant just for new investigators. Now, NIFA defines a new investigator in terms of what we mean for AFRI programs as a person that is less than 5 years postgraduate career track experience. That means you have to be able to apply as the lead PD for a grant. Oh, don't get back there. This does not include postdoctoral fellowships. So basically, if you're an assistant professor or an assistant research professor, that's when you start your 5 years. And the other designations that for being a new investigator, it also includes the fact that the caveat that you cannot have received a large federal grant, competitive research grant as the lead PD. Postdoctoral fellowships or graduate fellowships, co-PD status on any grant award, or being the lead PD on a conference grant doesn't really count towards that new investigator status. And the reason that you want this new investigator status is because we have awards that are just for new investigator seeds, and we have to fund a certain number of these every year. And a seed grant are 2-year awards, max $300,000 for 2 years, and they're designed to get new investigators a little bit of seed money, if you will, to collect preliminary data that they'll need to submit a successful full AFRI research grant. And these are ranked separately from the standard research grants. New investigator seed grants will be competing with seed grants from strengthening institutions. Those include your 1890s, your other minority serving institutions, as well as small to mid-sized universities and EPSCoR states. But we do have to fund a certain number of new investigator seed grants every year. And the reason I'm highlighting this program is because it really, it's a lot easier for new investigators to get seed grants versus standard research grants. If you apply for a standard research grant in AFRI, you're going to be competing with all the big boys, all the folks that have been established, your full professors, your associate professors, ARS, weed scientists, etc. These are just for new investigators, and we have to fund a certain number of them per year. We also accept conference grants. So this is one of your key ways. If you want to get a conference grant through NIFA, this program is the key way for you to do it. And you can submit a conference grant application anytime, but you do need to submit a letter of intent to me and Chris Phillips at least 95 days before the conference start date. And that rule cannot be changed. We don't bend that rule. $25,000 awards are the standard practice. The max that we do is 50,000, but you do need to discuss that with us beforehand. You can't just apply, send us the letter of intent and say, I want $50,000. It has to be justified. So you do need to talk to us beforehand before you create that budget. Otherwise, if you send in a $50,000 budget request and you don't talk it over with us, we may have to cut it because we might not have enough funds. You will need to submit a full application via grants.gov at least 150 days before the conference start date. And that's assuming that we invite you, after we read your letter of intent and discuss it with you, we invite you to submit. Conferences are peer reviewed, and they're reviewed by at least 3 ad hoc reviewers. And we fund about 2 to 3 of these per year. And in 2021, we funded the International Weed Science Genomics Consortium meeting that was held in Kansas City. And that was a really great meeting. And I was very happy to have funded that conference, and I hope to fund many more conferences through this program in the future. And with that, I'll leave you guys with a couple helpful resources here. If you want to learn more about the AFRI new investigator status, we have the following resources here for that. We have a frequently asked question. The website is there. We also have information for AFRI phase or EPSCoR programs. That's what the designation is for those strengthening awards. If you're at a minority serving institution and you're not sure it's eligible, check that out. We also are always looking for new volunteers for the pest and beneficials panel. The panel is going to be held sometime this fall. I suspect we're going to schedule it for late October 2022, and we're looking for new weed scientists. So please contact me and fill out this form. That's that third link on this page here. And once you're in our system, it's a lot easier for us to get a hold of you and have you participate in the panel. And there's no better way to get grant writing experience than to participate in a NIFA panel. We also have a NIFA update newsletter where you can hear about our latest news as well as new programs that are coming out. And I also encourage you to follow us on social media, YouTube, Twitter, and LinkedIn. We have a great YouTube page that has a lot of helpful videos that go over many of our programs in detail. With that, I'll be happy to take questions. Well, at the end. Thanks.
Thank you, Erica. Our next presenter is Dr. Tom Bewick, who is the National Program Leader in the Division of Plant Systems Production. Tom? Tom, you're muted.
Right. So, hello, everyone. Tom Bewick here. I am a weed scientist by training, so I feel right at home talking with you guys. I'm going to talk to you about 3 different programs that are unrelated, really, but all would accept applications regarding weed science and weed control. Okay. Was I unmute that whole time, Jim? Okay.
You're
I'm
good
gonna-
now, Tom. We can hear you
Okay.
just fine.
Okay. So what I said earlier was I'm going to talk about 3 programs that will accept applications involving weed science. The first one is the Supplemental and Alternative Crops Program. Historically, this program is focused only on canola, but in the 2018 Farm Bill, industrial hemp was added as an eligible crop. The FY22 budget is $2 million, and the RFA for this program will be released in about 45 days. The last bullet there is the eligibility requirements. So colleges, other federal agencies, and private sector entities are eligible to submit full applications. This program in the past has really focused on breeding and genetics for canola. The idea is to try to develop canola cultivars that can be grown in other areas. Traditionally, canola is grown primarily in the upper Midwest, North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota, places like that. And the industry is looking to expand into the southern region, mid-Atlantic region. We funded a project in West Texas last year. And so as the crop moves out into new environments, there's going to be different weed challenges and different, we're going to have to devise new strategies to bring the crop to market. With the addition of industrial hemp, we've only offered that in 2 RFAs. Last year, we focused on a collection of feral hemp populations from around the country to populate the new hemp germplasm repository that's up in Geneva, New York. This year, we are going to focus on production methods. So, this will be another opportunity for weed scientists to get in with a new crop and devise weed control strategies. And one of the things that's about this program is that it has to have a research and extension component. Both components have to be in the same project. The next program I want to talk about is the alfalfa seed and alfalfa forage systems program. This is only alfalfa is considered in this program, but you can, for example, if you're going to grow alfalfa in mixture with forage grasses like Bermuda or something like that, that is also allowable. The budget in FY22 is $3.5 million. The RFA is already in clearance, so we're anticipating that it will be released very shortly. And again, you can see the eligibility requirements for this program. And this is another program, both the supplemental and alternative crops in the alfalfa seed and alfalfa forage systems are championed in Congress by commodity groups. And so they're very keen on making sure that information that's generated in these programs gets delivered to the end user. So both of these programs have a requirement for an extension component. And I should have invited him. We have a new national program leader. His name is Basundat Makun. We call him Mac. He came to us from Mississippi State, and he's a forage agronomist. So he got his PhD at University of Florida. He's working with me now on both of these programs, and he's going to be taking them over in the FY23. The last program I want to talk about is the Specialty Crop Research Initiative. The first bullet there is the legal definition of specialty crops. There's a lot of special crops out there, but they're not all specialty crops. So fruits and vegetables, tree nuts, dried fruit, horticulture and nursery crops, including floriculture. These are the systems that have to be addressed. And one of the legislative priority areas is pest management. So again, we have funded in this program has been going on since 2008. And we funded quite a number of projects in weed science. One of the things that specialty crop producers are very interested in is automation. Hand labor is very difficult to find. There aren't a lot of chemical herbicides available for many of these crops. And so any sort of an automation, if you're a traditional weed scientist like I was, if you can work with some folks in biological and agricultural engineering and work on automating weed management systems, that would be really what the growers would need the most. We have to compete this program in two phases. We have a pre-application phase, which is the pre-applications are reviewed by industry reviewers, and they're rated for relevance to industry needs. And the industry reviewers decide which pre-applications get invited to submit full applications. So that deadline for the pre-application is already passed. And the RFA for FY23 will come out around October 1st. I always say around because SCRI, as you can imagine, at $80 million with a lot of stakeholder support in Congress, is kind of a political, it gets a lot of political interest. And so oftentimes the request for pre-applications gets delayed. The other thing is, here's the eligibility information. It's much more like the AFRI eligibility. So pretty much everybody is eligible to apply. And certainly most of our awards go to universities, although ARS scientists have been successful in about 20% of SCRI awards have gone to ARS scientists. And my last slide is the non-discrimination statement, which Erica so heroically handled. So with that, I'm finished.
Thank you, Tom. Well, we've heard from two national program leaders today who have discussed some grant programs that most weed scientists are familiar with. We're now going to hear from a couple national program leaders who manage programs that weed scientists may not naturally think of as obvious places to compete for grants for weed science research. So I think you'll find these very interesting. Our next presenter is Dr. Amy Ganguli, who is in the NIFA Institute of Bioenergy, Climate, and Environment. Amy?
Excellent. Thank you very much. Let's see. Can you see my slide presentation, or do I need to swap screens?
You're in the double screen.
Yeah. Try it again.
It's still in
There we go.
mode. There, that's good.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I'm very excited to be here to discuss some of the programs that you may not be as familiar with. So In particular, I want to highlight a few programs that are within the BENRE foundational or program area. BENRE stands for Bioenergy, Natural Resources, and the Environment. And the particular program that I'm going to highlight today is the Sustainable Agroecosystems Program. But I first wanted to give people just a really brief idea of the different kinds of programs that are found within this, this area. So when we look at the programs under BENRE, the 4 programs that you see here on the left are solely in the bioenergy, natural resources, and environment area: soil health, water quantity and quality, sustainable bioeconomy, and the sustainable agroecosystems. And then the programs that you see on the right are cross-cutting. That means that they span different programs. And so as an example, I collaborate with Erica on the Climate Hub Partnership Program because it is cross-cutting. So the BENRE portfolio supports both foundational and applied projects, and they can be research or integrated to promote and improve and maintain healthy agroecosystems and natural resources that are essential to sustain long-term production of agriculture and forestry goods and services. So just really briefly, our team, and one thing, as Erica mentioned, get to know your national program leaders and program specialists associated with the programs that you're interested in. We want to be helpful. We want to address your questions and help guide you in applying to either our programs or programs that might fit your needs better. And this team right here includes me. We have Adam Wilkie, National Program Leader, and Amber Campbell, who both bring social science expertise, and Jomi Zamora, who brings agroforestry expertise. So the Sustainable Agroecosystems Project, briefly, this only accepts research projects, so we don't have any integration with extension. The types of systems that can submit to this program can be extremely diverse. They're all managed, so we cover everything from rangelands to crops, specialty crops, forested areas, even urban agriculture. Our focus of this area is ecosystem health and production, and we have a special emphasis on ecosystem services. I'm really excited about the ecosystem service component of this program. In fact, I think it's one of the earlier programs that has been established, especially within USDA, that specifically addresses ecosystem services. And then often our projects have a mix of the biophysical as well as social sciences. So some of the details associated with this area, we are typically looking at projects that are dealing with improvement of ecosystem health and productivity in a managed system that's currently under stress. And right now, when we think of the kinds of stressors of these systems, we're thinking climate change, invasive plant species, pathogens, pests, you name it. So a lot of the work that might interest this group absolutely fits in that respect. We're looking for projects that advance understanding of processes and interactions, and also looking for new management or conservation practices that have a focus on ecosystem services. So what we really want to see are projects that propose innovative strategies to maintain or improve productivity while enhancing ecosystem services. We know that we can't really expand the footprint of ag. We need to figure out how to do things better and more efficiently. So we like to see projects that promote approaches that increase ecosystem health and resilience, along with output or value of more than one ecosystem service. We'd love to see projects that have more than one. And also the connection of ecosystem health and production system functionality, productivity, socioeconomic viability, sustainability, biodiversity, and production of other ecosystem services. So we can have projects that are more basic in nature, but people have to demonstrate the connection to how that work could be applied. So as I expressed, our projects span a spectrum of different research projects. They all fit within here, but people have to specify, make it very clear the system that they're addressing, and it can be a mixture of systems. To give you an idea of what kind of applications we've seen over time, this program has been involved since 2014. Our funding is on the right hand, the y-axis, as well as the number of applications on the left-hand side of our y-axis. And so we award, this orange line shows the number of projects we award. So we were right around 25, 26 projects that we awarded this year. Progressively, our funding has increased. This program is the largest program in the Bioenergy, Natural Resources, and Environment portfolio. We received like 97 proposals this year. Similar to what Erica described, we also fund sabbatical, conference, seed, and we're part of, we support some of the postdoctoral projects as many of the priority areas are nowadays. So we fund, with regards to weeds or invasive plant species, I wanted to highlight just a few projects to spur ideas. We have traditionally funded projects on noxious weed species. A lot of the projects end up being in rangeland systems, although that is not the only system. We also, I would say, annually have a lot of submissions in this area. So a couple of examples. This first project is looking at California rangelands. A lot of these have been invaded by annual species, annual grasses, as well as introduced forbs. And this project is really looking at how a better understanding of plant traits and plant evolution and sites that have already experienced species removal, how that's going to impact secondary invasion and how that can be taken into consideration with restoration activities. It's one example. Another example, we see a lot of projects on woody plant encroachment, and a lot of those species are native species that have expanded beyond their historical proportion, what you would expect for historical proportions, but we also see several introduced woody species that are submitted to our programs. So this is another program that was centered on ecosystem services. And again, one of the things that they're trying to do in looking at the mesquite invaded system was to develop better decision support models so that they could look at how different management scenarios can influence and impact ecosystem service provisioning. And again, ecosystem services, just think of your goods and services that a system can provide, which goes beyond just the production components. Production is a component, but it extends beyond that. And then a third example actually comes from an introduced perennial cool season grass, tall fescue, introduced for pasture, but has expanded beyond its range into a lot of grassland systems. This was a project that was looking at adaptive management and how strategies to diversify these systems so that they can improve the resilience of those systems from an economic standpoint, as well as provide more ecosystem services. So again, coming back to the list of programs that I have identified associated with the Bioenergy, Natural Resources, and Environment portfolio, in the yellow highlighted area, you'll see the due dates associated with these grant programs. If you're interested in any of these programs, please reach out. I wanted to leave you with a couple of final thoughts. As you have heard, for those people that joined the webinar last week, as well as what you're hearing today, there are many NIFA programs that fund weed-related research. My advice to you is reach out to the program contacts listed in the RFA to ask questions regarding the proposal fit. We want to be helpful. We want to help you find the best fit. But another recommendation I have is that you don't necessarily try to bend the arc of your research just to fit a specific program area. We are constantly revising our RFAs to be on the cutting edge of agricultural research and innovation. And so I would challenge you to use our program areas to spur innovation in your body of work, whether that be in research, education, or extension. So I'm happy to share this information with you, and hope that some of you reach out to me or my colleagues.
Thank you, Amy. We have received one question so far. So during the next presentation, I would encourage all of you to be thinking about questions you'd like to ask the panel. This is your opportunity to ask questions. So please post them in the Q&A so we can address them in about 10 minutes. So our next presenter is Victoria Finkenstadt. Dr. Finkenstadt is a national program leader in the Division of Agricultural Systems. So Vicki.
Thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, aloha. I'd really like to thank the organizers for inviting us from NIFA to give presentations on our programs. My name is Vicki Finkenstadt. I'm a national program leader. I have actually transferred to the Institute of Bioenergy, Climate and the Environment from the Institute of Food Production and Sustainability. NIFA, as you can imagine, is in flux right now with all our new hires. I'm going to talk about something that you would never think about as wheat scientists, and this is a program called Biorefining and Biomanufacturing. My co-lead is Dr. Steve Thompson. I took over from him when I joined NIFA 18 months ago. Our program specialist, who is really the genius behind the curtain, is Lynn Elliston Giddings, and our backup is Desiree Rucker. So biorefining and biomanufacturing deals with taking biological systems and converting them into different types of products. And so this program area does conversion processes, and normally you think about this in terms of biofuels. Right, converting different types of commodity crops into biofuels. But it goes much more beyond that, including all sorts of other bioproducts associated with that. And I'll talk about that a little later. We want to advance or expand the utilization of waste and byproducts generated from agricultural and food systems. We want to identify those factors that constrain or encourage the adoption of these technologies. And as you know, especially in the American society, it takes a long time for consumers to accept new products or new ways of doing things. The three that I've listed here in red is something I think that is directly relevant to wheat scientists. One is to engineer new or improved products that make use of materials, of course, from agricultural origin, to improve the production and efficiency and capacity of biomass, which includes making biofuels, chemical feedstocks, some type of bioenergy, and bio-based products. We also want to refine the long-term sustainability of systems that balance productivity along with economic, environment, and social outcomes. As you know, as you probably heard in several years ago when bioenergy and biofuels became very popular, that there was the food versus fuel controversy. And I can tell you that from USDA's perspective, it's not really about either or, it's about both. So similar to the other NPLs that you've heard from, we offer all sorts of different types of grants, including the seed grant at $300,000, a standard grant, research grant for $650,000, and then we're offering partnerships, which are up to $800,000. We also offer conference and workshop grants up to $50,000. So you're probably really wondering, well, how is this biorefining really going to affect me as a wheat scientist? Well, that's because we deal in all sorts of biomass. We deal with the commodity crops of cotton, soybean, and corn. We deal with woody biomass, especially those fast-growing coppice type woods, softwoods and hardwoods, grasses. Hemp is a new thing right now. Paper and paper waste and paper recycling. We see all sorts of biomass: poultry litter, chicken feathers, chitin from insects and crustaceans, dairy, right? Manure, which we call post-cow biomass, yeast and algae, recycled plastics, all of those things. But right up here are three things that are considered weeds that are being studied right now. Milkweed, not only for pollinator health, but milkweed has a latex associated with it. And both it and dandelion both have latexes associated with it, and they're being used as a domestic source of natural rubber. And these are things where you may or may not want to cultivate them in a row cropping type field, but you could certainly harvest them on the verge of those main agricultural plots. And so there's a lot of leeway here and a lot of opportunity, I think. I put in clover here. I like clover. A lot of people don't like clover, but clover and a few of the other types of cover crops also have their own phytochemicals. And I believe you heard from my colleague last week, Vance Owens, who deals with the production of phytochemicals and metabolites from different types of plants. And weeds have a lot of different metabolites that haven't been recognized, but can be used as nutritional supplements, etc. I just like to kind of pull it all into perspective here. The biorefining biomanufacturing certainly deals with all sorts of things, as you can see here on the right. Biogas, biofuels, bioenergy, renewable electricity, right? So if you burn wood and make electricity from it, that's renewable electricity. But here is all the types of biomass that we see. And it starts from the farm, from the forest, from the ocean, etc. And then we refine it, either using biochemical, biological, biosynthetic, biocatalysis, and other traditional methods. And we produce all sorts of chemicals, etc. We can also manufacture them into bioproducts. The good example of this is we see a lot of bioplastic replacing petroleum plastic, because there is a plastic pollution problem in the world that has severe economic environmental impacts. Making bioproducts which are disposable or biodegradable or can be recycled even better, then we can put whatever comes out of that back onto the farm, right? Or use it to grow more biomass and start the cycle over and over and over again. There are 4 different things that really help this ecosystem, and that is pollinator health. Can't live without the pollinators. We sequester carbon to address climate issues. Most of this is carbon neutral or negative, as long as your inputs are also biological. If you're using petroleum as an energy input, then it's not technically carbon neutral because you're using a fossil fuel. But overall, in a circular system, this would be. And then, of course, we have low greenhouse gas emissions as well. So this is a snapshot of what the biorefining biomanufacturing program aims to do. Use biomass, make products that American consumers want and need, and do it in an environmentally and economically responsible system and manner. I just leave you with a final thought. I'm sure as weed scientists, you know this little saying here. It's a weed is just a plant that has not been recognized for its value. And I'd be happy to take questions.
Thank you, Victoria, for that great presentation. We are now at the part of the webinar for Q&A. And I would again encourage you to submit your questions using the Q&A widget. So far, we only have one question. And that was actually submitted in the chat. And so I will read it to the panel, and then the panel can decide who to respond. Typically, NIFA discourages one PD submitting 2 applications to one program. Given the fact that new investigator is allowed to submit a seed proposal, am I getting trouble if I have submitted one new investigator and one seed proposal with completely different ideas to the same program? Who would like to address that question?
I can take that because that happened. Generally speaking, you technically can submit one seed application as a new investigator and one standard research grant application also as a new investigator, as long as they do not overlap. They're completely different projects. So technically you can do that. It's not encouraged. We encourage you to submit one application per year to an AFRI program so that you can do the best job you possibly can, but it's technically not against the rules. We had that happen last year. We don't want you to submit 2 seed grants though. So do not, if you're a new investigator, you're only, and this is in the rules, if you read the AFRI frequently asked questions, it's, you can only submit, we can only fund 1 seed grant per PD per year. So do not submit 2. We won't be able to fund 2 seed grants. So keep that in mind, that we encourage you to focus on 1.
Okay, excellent. We have received 1 additional question. And again, I encourage you to submit questions when we have time to answer them, which is right now. So this question is directed to Tom Bewick. And it is, can Tom cover the pre-proposal process for SCRI? Tom, you're muted.
You would think after like 28 months of doing these conferences, I would know to unmute myself, but you can't teach an old dog new tricks, as they say. So, but anyway, yeah. So in 2014, the Farm Bill mandated that NIFA institute an industry relevance review for SCRI. We negotiated with Congress, and they agreed that we could do that as a pre-application process. So early in the fiscal year, October 1st is the first day of our fiscal year, we put out the request for pre-applications. Pre-applications are reduced. They don't have budgets. You have to have an estimate of what the project's going to cost. You have to tell us what kind of project it is. That was one thing I didn't mention. SCRI has coordinated agricultural projects, standard research and extension projects, and then planning projects. So you have to tell us what kind of project it is that you're working on. And then we take those pre-applications and we distribute them into groups of closely related plants or concepts. So like last time we had one panel for produce safety, food safety. We had one for pollinators. We had for greenhouses. So those are kind of themes. And then we have them for different specialty crop groups. We recruit industry reviewers. They review those pre-applications. The pre-applications are maximum 7 pages. So, otherwise we wouldn't get the industry folks to review them. If they're too long, they don't, they have 60-hour-a-week jobs already. So doing this is really a burden for them. And then we give them, roughly 45 days to review the pre-apps. We hold Zoom meetings with the panels. They prioritize the pre-applications as high priority for the industry, medium or low. And then we do the sorting, put them into the columns. Then we discuss whether any of the pre-applications should move up and down in the priority scheme. And then all of those that are rated high priority or medium priority are invited to submit full applications. The full application is just that. It's a standard, we went to 25 pages because our policy office mandated we go from single spacing to 1.5 spacing. So in order to get the same number of lines, we give them more pages. And so and then we have a panel of scientific experts come in, review the full proposals for scientific merit. And then at the end of the day, we combine the results of the scientific review with the results of the relevance review to generate our funding recommendations.
Okay, thank you, Tom. That's excellent. So I now have.
Can I just make a statement? I forgot to mention that Megan O'Reilly is my program specialist, and for all of the programs that I presented, and she's been with NIFA since 2010. So she's a seasoned veteran like I am. So It's really one of the only ways we can manage all these programs that we're doing. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you, Tom. Well, we now have received a question for Amy and a question for Victoria. So we'll start with Amy. Question is, does the BNRE program interact with the Forest Service for research on invasive annual grasses and their role in fires?
So that's a great question. First, I'll just start off by saying that we NIFA typically interacts with a variety of federal agencies. And so we regularly communicate with the Forest Service as well as NRCS and ARS, and then via many interagency panels are communicating with other agencies as well. So we communicate about our priorities, especially as we're developing strategies to respond to the current administration's priorities. In terms of, we don't do research, but we certainly craft programs. One thing I can tell you, the program that I highlighted, the Sustainable Agroecosystems, because it's a research only program, we regularly have Forest Service researchers apply to our program. And we have had, cheatgrass in particular, several projects addressing cheatgrass. A lot of our Forest Service applicants are dealing with more of the forested systems. So that is a fair game. And if you have any follow-up questions, please go ahead and put that in the question box. But yeah, thank you for asking that.
Okay, thank you, Amy. So the question for Victoria, could you talk a bit more about the US-Ireland R&D with the biorefining program? Would the US-Ireland proposal have priority consideration against other proposals in your program?
Short answer, it doesn't really get priority. The long answer is because it's competitive, right? It's competitive. However, the tripartite US-Ireland research initiative receives funding from all three governments, Northern Ireland, the Republic of Ireland, and the US. And so I would say that, I don't know, you guys, you might, it's a trick question, right? The answer is we like those. How's that? Yeah, because it receives funding from all three countries and it usually addresses a multinational. Right. Yeah. So that's not real. It's kind of a non-answer. It is competitive though. So it does have to go through review and be ranked highly. So. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Vicki. Please keep your questions coming in. We have received a comment from Vijay Nandala, and Vijay is a national program leader in the Division of Plant Systems Protection and is my host as the WSSA liaison to NIFA. And he is reiterating the point that NIFA needs volunteers to serve on its many panels. And the programs presented by NIFA NPLs here are a great starting point. And I see a lot of thumbs up from the NPLs today, and I fully support that and agree myself as well. So let's see. It doesn't appear that we have any other questions. So perhaps this would be an appropriate time to go around to the panel in the order of presentations and ask each of our presenters today if they have any closing thoughts or any final words of wisdom before we wrap up the webinar today. So let's start with Erica.
Yeah, I'm always looking for new weed scientists for the pest and beneficials program. I also encourage some seed applicants. We didn't get, I was disappointed last year, we didn't get any seed applications from weed scientists, since I would like to increase the representation of funding for the weed folks. So please, if you're a new investigator, consider submitting a seed application. They're easier to get than the standard research grants. Thanks.
Thank you, Erica. And now let's go to Tom Bewick.
Yeah, so I would just encourage WSSA members to look at the supplemental and alternative crops program and also the alfalfa seed and alfalfa forage systems. These are hands-on translational programs. So, and there's a lot of need in both of those crop area, all three crop areas for good weed science practices. So I encourage you to look at those. And the alfalfa RFA is going to come out very soon. The sack RFA is going to come out in hopefully about 45 days. So be looking for those.
Okay, thank you, Tom. And for the panelists, you can't see this, but I am getting multiple thank yous from the participants in the chat. So, and I agree, thank you. So, Amy, any final thoughts?
Yes, two things. One, I just want to reiterate the value of volunteering to serve on a panel. In my prior life, I was an academic and I had served on 5 panels. I guess you could say I was bit by the bug, but I have to say that it really created an amazing environment for me to shape my research program as I went along as an assistant and associate professor. I then became a panel manager and I knew I was going to work for NIFA. So for me, I not only met some amazing colleagues, but I learned so much about the grant writing process as well as reviewing. And so it makes, there's no question in my mind that it'll make your work stronger and even more applicable. I guess the second thing I would just encourage people to do is, you heard us mention our social media. We have newsletters, we have a LinkedIn presence, Twitter presence. Keep in touch with what's going on, especially if you are looking for USDA related funding, whether it's NIFA or other agencies. It's really critical to be aware of what the current priorities are because that's what we're shaping our programs around, right? And then the third is that if you are wanting to know, say you're just starting off and you're trying to figure out where your work might fit, I pasted a link in the chat box for our enterprise search. It's also referred to as a data gateway at times. That database is phenomenal in terms of getting a really clear understanding of where some projects fit. So these project codes that we're using, you could search just by that code. And so say if you're interested in the program that Erica highlighted and you want to know if something fits, you can look specifically at those projects and then schedule a phone call. So take advantage of some of this information. Don't be afraid to reach out and thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you, Amy. And those of you that are members of the Weed Science Society of America, you will be receiving an invitation to volunteer to serve on NIFA panels later this spring. And so when you receive it, I would encourage you to say yes and respond back. And then all of the names of volunteers will be forwarded to NIFA, and it will put you in a database of prospective panel members and will help them and will also be a benefit to WSSA. So the last presenter is Vicki. Any final thoughts from you?
Yes, so this was really fun to do, talking to a non-traditional audience. And I think I speak for all of the NPLs that after you've consulted the gateway and seeing perhaps where your project or your project idea might fit, give us a call, send us an email. NPLs, one of our things to do is to talk to potential applicants and help them craft their, we don't give grant writing things, but to better fit the program priorities. So, and we talk amongst ourselves. So a lot of times if someone comes to me with a project idea, I'll send it off to Erica because I think it fits her program better. So yeah, don't be afraid to call us, but don't call us the week before the proposal is due. All right, call us a month or 2 months before the proposal is due. That's always a good thing. All right, thank you.
Very good advice. Thank you, Vicki. Well, we are now right at the 1 hour point for this webinar. So on behalf of the Weed Science Society of America, thank you for participating in today's webinar, and a special thank you to our excellent 4 presenters today. This was a great presentation. As I mentioned earlier, we will be posting the recording of this webinar and the previous webinar that took place on March 22 on the WSSA website in the near future. We will be sending out a notice when these two webinars have been posted. We intend to post both the recording and the PowerPoint slides that you've seen in the recordings, and they will be in a publicly accessible place with no firewalls, no restrictions. So thank you again for participating and have a great day.